Good afternoon, everyone. This is Haley Mitchell with the Lewin Group. Welcome to the fourth VDC Office Hour session in our series that was focused on bringing together business acumen and person-centered strategies. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you with us. Just a quick overview of the functions available to you on the Zoom platform today. Just note that you were muted when you joined the call today. This is to avoid any background noise throughout the session. To ask questions and communicate with us, you may use the chat function that should appear on the bottom of your Zoom screen as a speech bubble icon. Clicking on that will open the chat on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're comfortable, please send your chats to everyone so that everyone can see your questions or your answers. You may also opt to raise your hand during the session. There is a reactions icon that should show up as a smiley face on the bottom of your screen. By selecting raise your hand, that will indicate us that you would like us to unmute your line, and we can allow you to ask your question live. We will do our best to address any comments or questions raised during our session today, but please know that we will follow up with any unanswered questions following this call. We have a full agenda for our call today, so I am going to turn it over to Victoria Wright from the Administration for Community Living, who will provide us with an overview of what to expect on our call today. Victoria.
Thank you, Haley. Can you hear me, Haley?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for our fourth VDC Office Hour session. Before I move forward with today's agenda, I would like to take the time to thank the 38 providers who responded and provided feedback to our survey. We received some great feedback and we will incorporate this feedback into our future TA and training opportunities. For those who did not have the opportunity to complete the survey, we extended the deadline to October 30th to allow additional time to get your feedback. We definitely would love to hear everyone's feedback so we can provide improved technical assistance, tools, and resources for a successful VDC program. Haley or Natalie will, if you can please provide the link to the survey in the chat box. So if anybody is interested, they have that link available. Okay, on to our agenda today. For today's agenda, since July 2021, actually just this year, we facilitated 3 VDC Office Hour sessions focused on bringing together business acumen and person-centered strategies. We will do a recap of the VDC Office Hour Series. For those who were not able to attend or would like to hear an office hour session again, all session materials, including slides, recordings, and key takeaways can be found on our No Wrong Door VDC website. We will also provide an overview of the VDC TA community, including the features and ideas for engagement. This is really an exciting a tool to engage with our peers. We will provide an overview of key highlights of the FY22 case mix calculator. We receive a lot of questions regarding global budgets and goods and service approvals. So we decided to touch on this again and have it as our focus topic for this session. And then in closing, we will close with a Q&A, and then please note that if you have any question, please use the chat box anytime during the session. You do not have to wait to enter your question until the end of the session. So that's our agenda for today, and I'll turn it over to Pat. Pat, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Hello, everyone. It's so great to be here with you today. It's hard to believe that this is our 4th office hours. It's even harder to believe that it is October, a brand new federal fiscal year. In late fiscal year 2021, so in the summer, July through September, we had 3 office hours focused on how to bring together business acumen and person-centered strategy. So what does that mean? You know, we're driven by our ability to serve veterans in veteran-directed care, this amazing, innovative program that provides choice and control so that veterans can manage a flexible budget, identify their goals for independent living, and then use a budget to meet those goals. But there are some really important business acumen aspects to it. Spending plans, global budgets, monthly service reports, invoicing. And so how do we bring solid business acumen to those processes, but use those processes to support person-centered processes so that veterans and caregivers have the best experience possible in this program? So we've talked about managing invoices, developing spending plans, monitoring spending over the course of an authorization, and using monthly service reports. So if you've missed any of those, if you want to go back, we have the recordings. We've also developed kind of one-page key takeaways that you can access. So if you want to go back and look at any of those. So our first session in July focused on authorizations and developing spending plans. Please go back, take a look at those key takeaways. We also, ACL and VA have worked diligently to put forth a brand new billing and invoicing guide, a brand new monthly services report, as well as, and this did not exist before, a spending plan template to help you all for new enrollees, but then also to use that spending plan for as long as the veteran is enrolled in the program. So please take an opportunity to go back and look at those resources. We've done this, we can jump to the next slide. We've done this on each one of our office hours where there's so much content to go through, we can't get through it all. And we go through the chat to really figure out what are those common themes, what are those questions that maybe we weren't able to get to. And we have just a couple of them here. And it's also going to lay the groundwork for what we're going to cover in the rest of our time today. So the first FAQ. Great question. I'm always looking at the chat. Someone from our team, maybe we can go ahead and put the ACL No Wrong Door VDC page. The slides, the recording, they're going to be there. So the ACL No Wrong Door VDC page, we'll make sure to send a link in the chat and also put that in the follow-up email. But our first FAQ, having to do with veterans' budgets. I'm going to read the question slowly. What if the authorization period is different than the budget period? For example, a veteran is referred on July 1st. Their authorization date starts on August 1st. And their budget, and I'm going to take that to mean their spending plan, is approved on September 1st. How do you calculate the 12-month total? We're going to come back to this in just a little bit. So the veteran's total spending should be based off of the average monthly budget. So let that sink in. That does not mean that veterans have to stay within that average budget every single month. It means that over the course of the time when the veteran uses their budget, it should average out to their monthly budget. So let's talk about an example. So just based off of the question, and I'm at the first sub-bullet. A veteran is referred to VDC for 12 months, so January 1st through June 30th of the next year. Their global budget is $24,000. Their average monthly budget is $2,000. Okay, so over the course of that 12-month, the veteran can spend up to $24,000, cannot exceed that amount. And we know that their case mix rate, so the portion that they can self-direct, It's going to be $2,000. So I liked the question, so we're going to stick with that, how it's phrased. So it takes 30 days to develop a plan and, and for the VAMC to approve the plan. So let's say that the veteran, in this example, we're going to say they use their budget beginning on 8/1. So we're not doing 9/1, we're just going to say 8/1. So the veteran spending over that 11 months should still average out to $2,000 per month. So if you think about that, that means it's gonna come out to $22,000, even though they're authorized for $24,000. I'm gonna let that sink in just for a moment because it's really, really important. And just to be clear, we're gonna come back to this multiple times today because it is a new concept and it's taken me a while to just figure out how to really talk about this. But we need to be thinking about the time in which the veteran is using their budget. That's really important, okay? So they may have a 12-month authorization, but they're only using their budget for 11 months. And we don't want the veteran spending up to their global budget because it's really based on that case mix rate over the course of time that they're using their budget. So in this case, it's gonna be $22,000. I'm gonna give you an example why. So let's say the veteran is their spending plan for that 11 months looks to spend up to $24,000 because that's what they're authorized for. Why would that be a problem in the future? We know that veterans tend to stay in this program either until they end up in a nursing home or they pass away. But we have most of our veterans, they end up being in this program for a long period of time. So let's say the veteran uses their $24,000 in 11 months. Then they're going to get reauthorized for the program. Well, that reauthorization is still going to be based off of $2,000 a month for 12 months. So what does that mean? That means the veteran's actually going to have to decrease their spending if they're reauthorized. And that's really difficult to do. So we need to be thinking about that average amount per month over the time that the veteran's using their budget. So the authorization may be for longer than when they use their budget. The last thing that we want to do is have veterans get comfortable by spending $2,400 a month, only to then be reauthorized, and now they need to adhere to a $2,000 a month budget. That would be a huge shift for the veteran. And that's not something that would be really fair or equitable to do unless the veteran has a functional change where they need more money. So think about that. We're going to come back to that many times, but I really want to start thinking about the difference between average monthly budget and global budget and how we can apply business acumen to find a balance there. And we're going to talk about that a lot more, to be clear. Okay, I'm going to take just a couple questions real quick. Is the monthly service report template mandatory? The short answer is no, but the requirements for the monthly service report, as well as for the VDC spending plan, are in the billing and invoicing guide. It's a Word document, so it describes what needs to be in the monthly service report, what needs to be in the spending plan. So you do not have to use the template, but anything that you use should adhere to every requirement that's in the billing and invoicing guide. Those templates have been developed by ACL and VA because they do meet all of those requirements. So if you have something locally that works better for your VA, for the VDC provider, then that's fine. But we've developed these tools to meet the intent of the program, to meet requirements of the program, to then support you all in your ability to serve veterans. Okay, I know we have a couple other questions. I'm going to pause on just some of them for a moment, and we will come back. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. We've gotten this question a couple times, but we have not covered it on our office hours. And it's a really important question. This happens from time to time. So what's the question here? What happens if you submit a corrected claim that requires repayment to the VA? So let's think about that. This does happen, particularly when taxes are figured out. So, or what can happen here? I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So say a veteran, as an employer, is filing taxes for their worker, but they don't earn enough income to then meet FICA or SUTA requirements. So then there's, taxes that have been paid that actually come back to the employer. Well, those need to be returned to the VA. We can also see this happening sometimes if there are upfront payment requirements for like workers' compensation. Then the veteran is discharged from the program. Maybe there's money that needs to go back to the VA. But you cannot just write a check to a VA medical center and have them accept it. There's a process here. Medical centers have been provided with guidance. If a VDC provider needs to submit payment to the VAMC, the VAMC is going to need to issue what is called a bill of collection, or BOC. So that's issued by the VAMC. It provides instructions to the community provider to then submit payment to the VA. It has some numbers that you need to make sure you include when you send in a check. It tells you where to send it. It then is documentation for whoever is accepting that check to understand where does it go, who is it for, why are we getting it. So if you need to submit payment to the medical center, if you're a VDC provider, you need to bring that up with your VDC coordinator first. Ask them. If you are a VDC coordinator and you're not sure how that works, please reach out internally to the VA mail group. I know that there's some guidance, some templates that have been developed to help with this. So want to make sure that this is clear for VDC providers. It happens quite frequently when taxes are reconciled at the end of the year, tax year. Okay. And thank you for that question. It's a great one and kind of an off-topic billing and invoicing question. All right. Haley, before I turn this back over to you, I'm going to take just one or two other chats, just real quick. Okay, so the 12-month period, there are some questions asking about, the referral issue date, first appointment date. We'll try to get some clarification there. We're generally for today, let me just make sure that I'm clear. Usually there's an authorization date that can cover up to 365 days. And then there's the time period in which the veteran uses their budget. And there could be several examples of that. More than likely, it happens for new referrals where, a veteran is referred, but it takes them a period of time to, have an assessment done, develop a budget, hire their workers. So they're not going to be using their budget on day one, which is a little bit different than if you have a reauthorization, where that veteran's likely to just continue using their approved spending plan. So I'm really differentiating between that 12-month period and when the veteran starts to use their budget, but we'll try to get some more clarification on some of the terminology that's used within the VA. There was a question about who at the VA issues a BOC. I think it's usually someone within OCC or payment operations. It varies from one business to another, but we do have some recommendations to find out who issues it if you don't know within your VA medical center. So please reach out internally and I think someone from VA can follow up more. Okay, Haley, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about our new community.
Thanks, Pat. All right, everyone. We are just going to take a quick break from the focused topic discussion to share with you all a new collaboration resource that is available for all VDC programs. So on your screen right now, you should be seeing our VDC TA Community. And as you all have likely seen, our VDC Community was released as a collaboration space for VDC providers and partners to stay informed and access and share resources and also connect with one another. Our goal of launching this community is really to offer VDC providers a place to talk to one another, ask each other questions, share resources with each other, discuss promising practices. As I'm pulling up the website live, I'm going to share with you a few functions that are available for you to use. So I'm first going to jump into the VDC discussion board. This space offers VDC providers the ability to securely connect with your peers and join discussion board chats on various VDC topics. So just a quick overview to post on the discussion board. You'll click the link to VDC discussions. You will click start a new topic. And then from here, you're able to follow the prompts to enter a title and a description for your post. Clicking post is going to add your discussion to the VDC board, and your peers will be there to respond to it or engage in discussion with you. You may also respond to an existing post by clicking the post, scrolling to the bottom, selecting reply to topic, and then a pop-up will appear that will prompt you to enter your response and reply. I also want to share with you a space on the VDC community where you are actually able to upload your own VDC related resources for other providers to use as reference. So if you have something that you have found helpful in your VDC program, we've offered a place where you can add this for your peers to see. So all you have to do is very simply click on add a resource. And then similarly to the discussion board post, you'll be prompted to enter a title and then also a description for your resource. And you can upload an image, a video, or attach a file. Clicking post will share this with the VDC community. If you are looking for something specific on the VDC community, you can also use the search bar right here at the top to look for any resources or posts. For example, you can type in a keyword here, and a couple of options will come up. So you see our event here. You see a question that we posted a couple of weeks ago, and also some of the key takeaways where we included. All right. So that goes over our a couple of the functions. I also just want to note one other way you can use the search bar is to look up contacts. So if you know one of your VDC peers is using the VDC community, you can look up their name and you can actually direct message them on the platform. So I can use myself as an example. So if I type in my name will pop up, and I'll have the option to send myself a message. When you click send a message, a little chat here is going to pop up, and you can send a message to your peer who you want to communicate with, and you can have a history of that conversation as well. All right, one last feature I just want to highlight on the VDC community that will be useful for you all is the VDC events page. So clicking on the calendar icon will bring you to our events page. And this has a calendar where you can stay updated on upcoming events related to VDC. You see our event here today. You can also click on past to view any past events. And here you can also find some of our past sessions. We have the recordings here where you can reference past events. So that brings me to the end of our tour. We are really hoping that you all can use the TA community. We're hoping that you can join the community to engage with your peers. We really built this resource for you all. So Pat, I'm gonna turn it over to you with just one last note. If you do need access to the VDC TA community, you can reach out to our mailbox, veterandirected@acl.hhs.gov, and you can request an email invitation to register for and access the platform. All right, Pat, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Haley. And hope you all are really excited. These office hours have been such a great opportunity to come together, and we want to extend that with this TA community. It's here for you. It's also here for us. We want to be responsive to your questions. We want to understand what's going on in the community. So this is going to be a real-time way to keep up with you all, to support you in your important mission of serving veterans in VDC. Okay. Before we jump to the case mix calculator, I'm going to take just a couple quick chats. I love seeing them come through. The first one that came through, if the amounts for the first month or so are not available, why wouldn't the authorization say approved amount less amount until services start? There's a couple of reasons why. So the first, procedurally, VDC coordinators sometimes wear multiple hats. They are responsible for many authorizations. It would be extremely, extremely difficult to go back in, change authorizations, issue them back to VDC providers to make this account. So, and in reality, it's not needed. In reality, the goal here is to stay within the global budget and to design a budget based on the monthly case mix rate. So think about that. You know, there's really no need to go back, and it would take a lot of administrative burden in order to do that. There's another question about overtime being, and let me just go ahead and kind of give you a little bit of a more depth read. And I know you're not seeing the slides right now. I'll let you know when those slides are back up. But what do we do about when veterans overspend? You know, maybe overtime is now responsible for being paid. There's something really important here. If a worker works and the timesheet is signed and the timesheet is valid, that worker is owed payment. There's no way around that. So there's a couple things we need to think about. And I'm going to try to put them down into 3 different things, if that's okay. The first, at what stage are they in using their budget? So is this like month 2 or 3 of the authorization? Well, if so, we likely shouldn't go over that authorized budget. We may need to make some tweaks to the spending plan, but maybe maybe just the VA will pay that, minor overage. We need to adjust the spending plan. We need to make sure it doesn't happen again, right? So if we're identifying that earlier, we've raised it to the VA, talk through it collaboratively, there's likely a solution that can be found. If it's late in the authorization period, it's going to cause the veteran to go over. Well, we need to think about that. There's 2 things, and I don't think either of them are very pleasant. Number one, the VDC provider could pay it. Don't think we want to do that. The second would be the veteran needs to pay it. That veteran is the employer. We need to remember the importance of the veteran as an employer. Now, veterans are not going to want to pay that invoice for sure. We understand that. We need to make sure that veterans have that they are acutely aware of their responsibilities. We have templates to help with that if you're not sure how to do that. I'm going to toss out 2 examples. Do you have an employer agreement with the veteran and the VDC provider that very clearly lays out those expectations? In particular, what is the remediation plan for if they do not adhere? So strike 1, we come out, we talk to you about your responsibility. Strike 2, we come out, we talk to you again, but this time we say, if you do it again, we're really going to have to evaluate whether or not this program is right for you. Strike 3, maybe that needs to be escalated. What we want to make sure here is that our veterans, do they understand their spending plan? Do they understand they're supposed to have a worker from 9 to 11 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? Does the worker understand that schedule? Well, if the worker is there from 9 to 1, why? Why are they there from 11 to 1? What are they doing? Is this an education issue? Does the veteran have a need that maybe we weren't able to identify before? So there's a lot. So let's think about that. We're talking about bringing together business acumen and person-centered strategies here. That's really at that cusp there. We have the spending plan. We need to identify why the veteran is not adhering to it. But if a worker works those hours, they're owed payment, and that is entirely correct. Okay, it's an absolutely great question. We'd love to continue that. The case mix calculator is posted. It's going to be available. That link went out earlier. Natalie just sent it out again. I don't think that link copied all the way. Natalie, if you want to try to send that one more time, but it is on the No Wrong Door ACL website. It was copied earlier today and also sent around by Haley Mitchell. We can send both of those links. So if you don't get that direct link, go to the ACL website, it's there. No changes in the structure, okay? Just want to walk through a couple things. You have your state, your county, your case mix level, the date of the CEOC, which is the authorization period. That's what I'm going to call that, is really what that means. There is a definitions tab where these terms are explained. We have the veteran's monthly budget, the admin fee. Now, and I want to make sure a couple things are clear here. You have the assessment fee, you have the total budget, the total veteran budget for the CEOC, which would be the global budget. Then you have the assessment fee, and then you have a couple other figures too, if it includes or does not include the assessment fee. I want to pick out just a couple things. The average monthly veteran budget, that's going to be the portion that the veteran has available to spend. The monthly admin fee is then added to that to get the average VA obligation, which would be how much the veteran spends plus the admin fee. So I want to make sure that that's clear. There are terms and definitions here. Please look at them. If you have any questions, please do reach out. This does not include rounding. Someone pointed that out. We'll go back and look at that just to make sure that budgets, that payments being maximized as intended. That's a great question. So thank you for bringing that up. These are at whole numbers. Okay, let's jump to the next slide. Here's just an example. We always do this for Denver, Colorado. You have the 21 case mix to 22 case mix, the difference. So you can actually see the wage index somehow, don't know how this happens in Denver. We pull this from CMS, but it actually went down 100th of a percent. So you see that, but monthly admin fee still went up $16. You'll see the differences here. And maybe just one thing I want to pull out, 57 bucks a month. Doesn't sound like a lot when you look at it. Ends up being quite a bit over the course of the year. So I want you to think about, hey, these small differences, $400 for, 12 months, that veteran now has close to $500 more to spend in that year. How can we maximize their budget? And doing that in a very person-centered way. And I just want to give an example. Maybe you go out and you say, gosh, in the past 9 months, we've noticed that the caregiver is not doing as well. Maybe more frail, maybe just burdened, maybe stressed out. Is there an opportunity to support that caregiver in a way that the veteran would want to self-direct and use their funds? Maybe it means, hey, could the caregiver maybe once a month go away for the day, have 8 hours of care rather than 2? So that would give them a spa day. Maybe an opportunity to drive and meet up with friends who live an hour or 2 away. So think about that. How do we use that $40, $50, $60 a month difference in a way that's meaningful for the veteran and their loved ones. So just something to think about. Okay, we're getting some really good questions. Not sure if there are any questions about the case mix rates. We have seen those. Please do email the veteran directed inbox. I've seen a couple here, and just want to note that we will follow up as well. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So take a look at the calculator. You need to check your authorizations. You go by the authorizations if you're a VDC provider. That's what you need to go by. So please look at your authorizations. And like I said, if there's a change, you know, veteran's still in case mix D, but you have a new authorization and they get 40 extra bucks a month, how are we going to use that? So think about that in a meaningful way. And I know you do. So, you know, I think I just want to say that out loud, because I'm sure each one of you already do that. Okay, let's keep going. We're now going to go back to global budgets. We started with a couple of questions on global budgets. We're going to stick with this for the remainder of our time today. It's an extremely complex topic, and we want to do justice. We have some examples for you. We're going to talk about what global budgets are again. So let's go to the next slide. So the global budget, we're using that in quotations because it's as much conceptual as it is a real term. You'll see it in different ways. But it's the total budget that the veteran has available during their authorization period. Now, people say, why have we gone to global budgets? Well, there's one real reason. It's you know, we used to, if you've been in this program for a while, we used to have something called emergency backup fund, where veterans had to save before they could, you know, get backup care or, you know, make a planned purchase. They had to save for it. Well, you know, if there's a need for that care, we don't need to make veterans arbitrarily save. If they need a lift chair, if they need a microwave, if, you know, they need a good or service, we want them to be able to use their budget when they need it, not wait 3 to 6 months in order to save. So that's one real reason. The second reason, believe it or not, this is supposed to be simpler. You're not going to believe me. I think if we all had cameras on, I'd see a whole bunch of angry faces looking at me right now. But it is actually intended to make things simpler to manage. So if you're the VA, if you're a VDC coordinator, global budgets are intended to actually help you manage this program easier. If you're a VDC provider, we're going to be talking about some practices today so that veterans can get the most out of their budget by developing a spending plan that then aligns with these principles of global budgets. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Another reason we moved to global budgets, before, if your case mix rate was $2,400 a month, you couldn't exceed that amount. Well, that's not really the way the program is intended to work. So if spending is in the approved spending plan and it does not exceed the veteran's budget, we want them to be able to do that, even if it exceeds their average monthly case mix in that month. But over the course of the authorization, it should equate out to the average monthly case mix rate. We'll talk about that a little bit more. There was one person, I'm going to call this out, one person who said it's easier as a global budget. And I appreciate that person. And I don't know if that feeling is shared with others, but my goal today is to convince you of that fact. Okay, let's keep going. We talked about, you know, the example. If your veteran's budget is $2,400, well, you know, there's going to be plenty of times when it would be completely acceptable to exceed that amount. Let's talk about some of those reasons. So one, let's assume a veteran gets care every Monday. And I'm just going to make this a very extreme example. Let's say the veteran gets 18 hours every Monday of care, right? Maybe they need like 3 6-hour shifts. Veteran's gone from the time they wake up to the time they get home. If you think about it, some months have 4 Mondays, some have 5. Pretty easy example. There's going to be a big difference and how much they spend in those months, depending on if there's 4 or 5 Mondays. So 2 months out of the year are going to have 5 Mondays. So we want to make sure when we develop the spending plan that we estimate average spending. We want to make sure we don't exceed that global budget, but there could be 2 months out of the year when that $2,400 monthly budget is exceeded just because there are 5 Mondays. Another example, what if a primary caregiver is going away and there's more care needed for a 1-2 week period? Well, we want to make sure that veteran plans for that. Is this sometimes it's foreseen, sometimes it may not be as easy to predict. We always want to be thinking about risk, of course. So, could a caregiver get sick? Well, what happens if a caregiver gets sick? Do they have other people who can help out, or do we need to build that into the veteran's budget? But let's take, for example, a caregiver is going to go away for 2 weeks. Well, we know that in that month, there's likely going to be more need that we need to plan for. One that we see oftentimes, one-time purchase. So in the month when that purchase is made, spending is likely to exceed the average case mix rate. So what's important is that all of these are included in the spending plan. That's what's important, because that's going to make sure that we're monitoring against global budgets, not exceeding that ceiling, adhering with the intended budget of the veteran. Okay, so we've made some changes to the spending plan template to help with this, and we want to talk through those a little bit today. We can go to the next slide, and we're going to show you how this works, but we've added a couple rows to the spending plan template. It is not yet live on the ACL website, but it will be very, very, very soon. And when it is, we think it'll help. So I'm going to cover those changes real quick. So the top yellow box that you see with the arrow that kind of goes to the bottom left. This is brand new, but before this was here, you entered the budget, the global budget during the authorization. What was not there, what is there now, is you estimate the number of months in which the veteran is going to use their budget if it's not 12, right? So if the veteran's going to use their budget for 12 months, you would enter 12. If it takes 60 days to get an assessment, develop the plan, get it approved, you would enter 10. It does not need to be, decimals. We don't need to say 10.5 months. We don't need to say, 10.278. Estimate the average number of months, and it'll be clear why in a little bit. Going to the bottom and then moving to that arrow to the right. We've estimated the average spending over the course of the authorization, okay? Based on how many months the veteran is using their budget. So we've now estimated that. You see that in purple. It's kind of like right between the two yellow boxes. But then there's 2 different green boxes that you see here. The first, does the average monthly spending, is it within the case mix rate? So in this example, it's yes. So the average case mix rate, I know it's a little bit small, but it's $3,035. The average monthly spending is $2,935. So it's under, on average, that monthly amount. And then the next check is going to be the global budget. So the global budget is $34,981. So the total spending in this authorization is estimated at $29,355. So it's within the global budget. And it's going to be within the global budget the way we structured this. So the budget is actually based off of 12 months, right? But the veteran's only using their budget for 10 months. So why did we give you this here? Think about this. So in that 10 months, we still want to make sure that the veteran's not blowing above their monthly case mix rate, right? So we know on average the veteran is spending within it, and it's below the global budget. So now let's assume the spending plan, veteran uses it, is then reauthorized for 12 months. They're still going to be within their case mix rate. I hope that makes sense, because if you think about their global budget, it's $34,981. If you were to try to use all that money in 10 months, it would be close to $3,500 per month the veteran would need to spend. Then if they were reauthorized, they'd have to come back down to $3,000. So this is a really important concept. We've attempted to modify the spending plan based on that feedback and hope this makes it a little bit easier to think about those months when maybe the veteran doesn't use it for 12 months total. Okay. Let's go through some special cases. We have 2 of them. We can go to the next slide. We've gone through this example a couple times. This one I think is going to be a little bit easier to go through. Veteran uses their budgets 2 months into their authorization. We're doing this to make it easy. It could be 50 days. We don't need to wait till the 60 days. Veterans should use their budget once it's approved. We can estimate how many months they're going to use it for, and I would round. So if the veteran, starts using their budget on day 52, you would want to say that it's 10 months. If they do it on day 34, you would want to estimate that it's 11 months. Okay. Let's walk through this now. So I'm going to go straight to the graphic. What you'll see here is the top part of the spending plan tab where you input spending. So we're estimating the first group of 4 is going to be the estimated one-time and monthly expenses. So how much does a veteran use on personal care? $1,865 is the estimate. How much on routine goods and services? So those are things the veteran's purchasing monthly. And then what's the AD&A's admin fee? So it's estimating how much they spend monthly. And then you have one-time goods and services, you have emergency backup care, employer costs, which you can do as monthly or annually, and then it's estimating those one-time costs. So you can't just add those 2 together, right? The estimated recurring monthly spending and the one-time, because that's not going to be the average spending. We've done this math for you in the box below. And you saw this on the prior slide. So you had the global budget first, $34,000, 981, 10 months, because we talked about it, takes 60 days. The case mix rate, 3,035. We've now calculated. So if you take that 1,429 divided by 10, add it up, we've done the math. I think it's probably more confusing by me walking it through. But we're saying, based on those estimated one-time purchases and the recurring monthly spending, over that 10 months, the veteran is going to spend, on average, $2,935. That's what that arrow is directly pointing to. And the yes is saying that it's within the case mix rate of 3,035. The last green shows that it's within the global budget. So we have 2 checks in there, 2 greens, we're good to go. I hope that is clear. Now let's go to the second example, because this is a little bit more complex. There's a question about how do you budget for emergency backup care? That's in there. So we were estimating it. Yeah, and so, you need to think about, what is the risk of the veteran? What is their emergency backup and care needs? 2 examples. If you have a family caregiver, a primary caregiver, if they get sick and the veteran has a whole bunch of family who can jump in at the drop of a hat, well, they don't have a ton of emergency backup care needs. But if that veteran is living alone or has a caregiver who maybe, does need to go away, who maybe can't manage everything the way that they once were, their emergency backup care is going to be a lot greater. So we need to be thinking about that. We need to budget it. May not always be used, but it's really important. It's there when you need it. Okay, let's talk about when case mix changes happen. So what could happen here? Veteran goes into a hospital, they come out, they have a new case mix rate. There could be a lot of reasons why this happens, but what do you do there? Maybe it's the same authorization. Let me just kind of state this. If the VAMC issues a new VDC authorization, like case mix level changes, you get a new authorization, you're just developing a new spending plan. Pretty easy. It's a new authorization, new global budget, new time period. But if that existing authorization is just changed to account for the new level, you're going to need to think about what that means and develop a spending plan following the guidance here, because we know it's a little bit more confusing. Let's say the veteran doesn't have any one-time purchases, right, that they needed to make using their old budget. If that didn't happen, really what you can do is you can just develop a new spending plan off of the case mix rate in the remaining months. just start over. So if you're now case mix E and you're $3,000 a month and you have 6 months left, just base the spending plan off of that remaining time. But let's say the veteran had one-time purchases or they had emergency backup needs and they still need that. Well, then it gets a little bit more complicated and you're going to have to kind of, in a little bit of a way, kind of mess with the spending plan template to make this work. And we're going to show you how. Okay. Going to the next slide. So this just shows, let's just assume the veteran didn't have any emergency backup or one-time goods and services. Just do a new spending plan template with the new case mix rate. So you'll see that here. You know, you have the total budget. We're saying the number of months is 5. Here's the case mix rate. Here's their actual spending. Okay, well, let's assume they did have an emergency backup care. So they were, you know, planning to use a certain amount of money and they still need that. If we can jump to the next slide. So in this example, we're saying, assume the veteran had planned for $400 in emergency backup care due to a planned vacation. They still need that in addition to $300. Where it says the VDC budget during the authorization, you're going to want to take the new amount, right? The new case mix rate multiplied by the number of months plus the previous emergency backup care. In this case, could be a planned purchase, but here it's $400. So the math is pretty simple. Their budget is $3,035, multiply it by 5, but they need to carry over that $400. So their budget here is $15,575. Before it was $15,175. However, something does happen here. And if you look at this closely, we'll show you. By adding that amount, the veteran is exceeding their case mix rate. So you see that big old red that says no, because the veteran is estimated to spend $3,069. Their case mix rate is $3,035. What's throwing that askew is the $400 that you've added back in. There's really not a good fix here. What we need you to do is to document why this is. Work with your VDC coordinator so everyone is on the same page. Why is that possible? Because let's remember, we're still going off of the global budget. So let's look at that total spending during the authorization. It's $15,348. It is still under the global budget. That's the number that cannot be exceeded in order to get paid. So we have a big red. We need to talk with our coordinator about why that is. We need to make sure that it's extremely clear for everyone. We need to make sure that we don't exceed the global budget. There's not a great thing that we can say here in this situation. It gets a little messy, but we still have a green too. And we need you to go against the green. We need to remember everything needs to be in the spending plan, which it is. Everything needs to be approved by the medical center, which it will be. And it needs to be under the global budget. So I wish I could turn this to like a lighter red. Maybe our color choice was off. It's more of a caution for this, but you know, here we're bringing together our business acumen and our person-centered approaches to VDC. Now, I only have a couple minutes left. I know there are some questions. I'm going to get to those, but I do want to talk about a third example that we're not going to cover, and there's a reason why. Let's say a veteran is hospitalized or needs to go into a nursing home. Say they're in there for 30, that doesn't matter how long. You know, what do we do when they come back? If there's no change in the case mix, if there's no change in the veteran's need and how they're using their budget, you don't need to do anything. We do not want veterans catching up on using their budget. Remember, this is about average spending when they use their budget. So we shouldn't be thinking, okay, you've been in, you know, a hospital for 30 days. Well, now we have $2,000 more to spend. That's not right. If their case mix rate stays the same, okay, remember that. So if they're still case mix D, they just continue to use their spending plan. Now, if a veteran goes to a hospital, they could still come back with the same case mix and need to change their spending plan, right? Like maybe their schedule doesn't work anymore for some reason. Maybe they need to tweak how to use their funding. But we are not, playing catch up. We're not prorating. We're not changing anything. If everything stayed the same, you continue to use their budget. I hope that's clear. If a veteran goes into a hospital, it's very likely that their needs will change. It's very likely that we'll need to tweak their spending plan, even if their overall amount of need doesn't change. But we don't really need to mess with the budget just because they went 30 days without spending anything. Okay, it seemed like that was connecting. Okay. So we are, and I'm just going to go through this again. In summary, we're designing a spending plan that's based on monthly spending and one-time goods and services, emergency backup care. That should come out to the average case mix rate. We are not trying to ever play catch up just because a veteran didn't spend their money. We should be designing a spending plan to meet their needs based on that average case mix rate when they use their budget. And we can come back to this. So I'm just going to say it one more time. If a veteran is hospitalized, we're not prorating their budget. We're not reducing their budget. If their needs are staying the same, everything stays the same. Now, if their needs change, maybe their case mix will need to change, in which case you can follow this guidance. But if a veteran goes into a hospital and they come out and their spending plan still works, there's no change in the case mix, they just continue to use their spending plan. Nothing changes. Okay. So you'll need to, okay, and this is a great point here. There are some local differences here. I mentioned this. Some medical centers will issue a new authorization. Some will edit the existing authorization. Medical centers, VDC providers need to work very closely together. That also goes for initial authorizations. We know some medical centers only make authorizations within a fiscal year. So they will make it up to 12 months if it's from October 1st to September 30th. But if they make a referral in May, it may only go through the end of September. So there's some local differences there. We need to make sure that we look at that authorization. That's what's ultimately important here. Okay. Once again, the spending plan template is not mandatory. There was no spending plan template in the past. This has been designed to help and support you all. The billing and invoicing guide, that Word document, is very prescriptive on what the requirements are. And I want to give one example, and then I'll stop talking because I know I'm out of time. But it is very specific. It is not enough to say veteran has this worker, they work 40 hours a month. That's not what a spending plan is intended to do anymore. A spending plan should document, here's the worker, here's their schedule. Weekly, they come on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Here's their schedule. They come on the weekends. Here are the services that they provide. Here's a relationship to the veteran. So we're not looking for just a monthly cost anymore. We're breaking it down. And that's because we want to have something that the veteran understands. They need to understand their budget so they don't overspend, so they don't underspend, so they design it to meet their needs. So we need you to look at that template, read through the billing guide, and make a clear and conscious decision on what works best for your program, the provider and the VAMC. All right, I'm over, and actually I forgot to go through something, but this was totally important. So I'm going to be super quick with this, and then we can go to closing. Goods and services. We will get you these slides. There is not an exhaustive list. What there is criteria. We need VDC providers and VAMCs to work together to understand this criteria and to talk through individual goods and services. So there are some very important criteria here, like it cannot be provided by another source, right? We want veterans to use their budget that are provided, that are for services that they can't get elsewhere. But please look through this afterwards. I'm out of time and I won't keep you over. And what I'm going to do is stop there. I so appreciate the time to go through this. I know that this is a complex topic and happy to revisit it, use the TA community, use future calls. Victoria, so sorry for running over. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Pat. No problem. And as soon as the recording comes available, the slide deck and recording will be sent via email. And also all the materials that's been used will also be posted on our No Wrong Door VDC website. There will be a post-event survey. We ask that everyone please provide your feedback. We would love to hear your comments and suggestions. As Haley discussed earlier, we have the ACL Technical Assistance Community, where you can continue conversation using the discussion board located on the ACL TA Community. Thank you to all the providers to continue to submit their data in the VDC monthly reporting tool. If you have not submitted any data, please consider doing so in the near future. This data help you as well as the VA and ACL analyze the status of veterans served by VDC. Lastly, if you have any question or concern, please feel free to email our VDC mailbox at veterandirected@acl.hhs.gov. And thank you all for your participation, your work, and support you provide to all our veterans. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.